If you're a small business owner, chances are you have more than one. Well, I mean, even if you don't have like a fully, completely separate business, it's likely you have at least half of another brand that you're working on because that entrepreneurial brain of yours just always has ideas. And that's exactly why we built Enji to be a flexible marketing software for small business owners, because we know that you've always got something else that you're trying to bring to life, but you also really don't like being forced into needing multiple subscriptions on one piece of software. Hi, my name is Taylor and I'm one of the founders here at Enji. And in this video, I want to show you how you can manage more than one business or brand in one Enji account. I'll show you how to create additional accounts, what Enji features work really well when you're managing more than one brand, and the two places that it doesn't quite, because I'm all about being totally honest with you. So I'm here in Enji's Enji account because I actually use this one account to manage multiple brands. I have the Enji brand and I also have our podcast brand. So the first place that I want to start is with all of the ways that managing more than one business or brand in one Enji account works really well. Like no workarounds, easy peasy lemon squeezy. So, and that very first place that I wanted to show you is in the brand asset library, because like I said, no friction here. Sorry, that was kind of jargony. But you can see as I'm scrolling through, I've got all the different Enji logos and the different color palette or colorways that I have it. And then I get into the Pretty Okay podcast logos. And then I scroll down and I've got the Enji color palette, and then I've got the Pretty Okay podcast color palette. Same thing in the fonts. I've got Enji fonts, Pretty Okay fonts, and then even I have an image gallery, some for Enji, some for Pretty Okay. And this works super, super easily because all you need to do to add any of these elements is just click the plus button and add what you need. So what I've done, just because my brain is, hyper organized, sort of type A, has a lot of control issues, but been to therapy for it. I like to add just a little like title to the front of things. So it says pop for Pretty Okay and then heading. And then over here, I like to have my things grouped together. So that's why I did all of the Enji logos and then I got into the Pretty Okay logos. But as you can see, super, super easy. And even when someone needs something, when I click the button to send it, again, I'm just picking, hey, this person needs all the Pretty Okay, sorry, that's not Pretty Okay, all the Pretty Okay stuff, and I can send it off versus, hey, someone needs the Enji color palette and Enji logos, right? No sort of workarounds going on here. So that works super well. Then the next couple places in the same vein of like brand stuff that also work really well, if I go into the brand guide, I can easily create a new brand guide. And I've got one here for the Pretty Okay podcast with the mood board and the color palette and all that kind of stuff. I can still send it off in one click, just as I would be able to do with the Enji one. And you can see it's super easy to toggle back and forth between the two. If I wanted to create a second brand voice, actually, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, but here I haven't done that yet because I don't personally use Enji's AI copywriter for Pretty Okay, but I could easily come in here, click add a brand voice, and then I could either choose the same one as Enji, or I could click the plus button to get a new brand voice that's something different. So that's the brand guide stuff. Then with the media kit, same deal. I can have different versions of media kits, and I actually worked with our social media manager, Maddie, to create this one. So there's her beautiful face. But you can see, same thing, super easy. I can have multiple media kits and I can still send them off, keep things compartmentalized, which is really what we're trying to do here. So those are all the ways that the Enji brand stuff works really, really well. And the next thing that I wanted to jump into is social media scheduler. Now, just in case you don't know, you can access the social media scheduler through the copywriter as well as the calendar. And hi, there's Taylor's very busy marketing calendar. But the thing that I want to point out is if you have multiple brands, you can have multiple connected accounts per platform. So you can see here, I've got Enji's Instagram account and the Pretty Okay podcast Instagram account. doesn't make things any harder than it needs to be. And then if you want to do that, then all you need to do is click that plus button, add the additional platform, and you are ready to go. So then when you are using the scheduler, I'm going to click into my content, and don't be alarmed at what you see because we are using Enji to schedule a lot of pins. But let's just say I'm going to drop in an Instagram post here, and I want to make sure that it goes out for Pretty Okay versus Enji. So I'll click in here and then just toggle to the Pretty Okay podcast account. And then that's all I needed to do to make sure that this piece of content goes out for that account, which I'm going to delete it because I'm not actually scheduling things at the moment. So I'm going to clear that out. And the next thing that I wanted to show you was the copywriter. And so you've seen now that I have multiple brand voices. And if I'm going to start something like a blog post and I want to make sure that I'm picking that second brand voice, then all I need to do is click over here and then I can select it from the list. You can see Enji's brand guide or the Pretty Okay podcast one. And so again, super easy to just use one account to do multiple things. And that way your copywriter is making sure that it's drafting things in a way that is the best for one brand versus the other. Okay, so there's the copywriter and scheduler, which brings us to the last place that you can really manage multiple brands or businesses in one Enji account without needing to do any workarounds, and that's on the performance tab. So you can see here that I have Enji KPI charts mixed in with Pretty Okay podcast KPI charts, and it's not a problem at all. Now, the sort of asterisks on this within Enji's Enji account is that all of the podcast KPIs that I'm tracking are manual KPIs to track, meaning there aren't direct integrations to automatically pull those numbers in. But even if there were, it still wouldn't be a problem, and I'll show you why. But some of the things that I do to differentiate my charts so that I can see, hey, this is for this versus this is for that. The easy thing is by using the color palettes. And I've gone and I have used or color-coded all of Enji's KPI charts to be in Enji colors versus Pretty Okay podcast KPI charts to be in Pretty Okay podcast colors. So that's one way that I do it. And then also, I'm adding that, pop or Pretty Okay to the chart name so that, again, I have just another way to know what this chart is for. But even if I wanted to track KPIs that are connected to a direct integration, that also isn't a problem because, again, I can go back here, I can go to connected accounts, and then I can add another Google Analytics account, or I can add another Instagram account. And that way I have it as something that I can select from when I'm setting up those charts with the direct integrations. So that's the last way that the last feature that you can use within Enji that you don't have to do any workarounds to actually have multiple accounts in one. But like I said, there are two places where it's a little bit sticky, not impossible, but again, I always want to be honest with you, so I'm going to call those things out. And the first one is within the strategy. And there's a version of reality where this isn't a problem for anyone who's managing multiple accounts or multiple businesses in one Enji account. And that's the instance where you actually don't really need a full-on marketing strategy for that second brand. And our account is a really great example of that because the podcast, the Pretty Okay podcast, is just a manifestation of a marketing channel for us. So I don't need to have a separate marketing strategy. But if I did need maybe part of a marketing strategy for the other brand, it's not a problem if the core of the things are overlapping. Like your goals and objectives are the same or very similar, and maybe you're just adding some to bulk it up, or your customer personas are pretty much the same, or you're fine adding more personas and just giving them the label. So that in that instance, you can totally kind of meld or make one marketing strategy work for a brand and a half. Where it doesn't work well is if the second brand or business is fully standing on its own 2 feet and needs its own marketing strategy, because Enji was built around the concept of one account for one strategy. So in that case, it's definitely not ideal. And the other place that I wanted to point out where it's not super ideal is on the calendar. And you know that you can color code things on the calendar. Any just like general tasks are going to be the theme of the account, and then you can color code things based on how you've color coded the channel. And then same thing with marketing campaigns, right? Like we have the ability to make these specific colors. But what you can't do on the calendar is color code things to be like for different businesses. So like I said, while it's for marketing channel versus campaign, you can't do that for different business entities. But what you can do is just sort of like add that prefix to the front of a task to help it stand out. But that for sure is a workaround. But those are the ways that you can start to use one Enji account to manage multiple businesses. Well, that's everything that I wanted to show you, and I hope that it helps you, especially if you've been on the fence about whether or not you need a second Enji account. Because in the end, I'd actually suggest that you start managing both brands in one account before jumping into the deep end of the pool with 2 accounts. Because, you're super busy and you're just trying to get your marketing done. And as always, hit us up if you have any questions, because we are always here to help.